Tu es belle, gentille et intelligent. Je suis beau, grand et sérieux. How you doing? Alright, so how you doing? If you click the Linktree link above, then you're going to have access to my Linktree. And in the Linktree, you're going to see our good buddy Joey from Friends. And he wants to know how you doing. Now, the exercise that you can find in that blog article is going to help you to understand the first two sentences in the wonderful book, Greetings in French, Part 1. In the very first situation, Marie wakes up and she meets her cat. She says, Bonjour Sam, tu es très mignon. Comment vas-tu ce matin? You see, so I've learned two fantastic French sentences. Now, in previous videos, we were looking at that first sentence, tu es très mignon, and we learned all about the verb être. And of course, we learned all those wonderful adjectives. Belle, beau, intelligent, sérieux. I feel better because, it only took me 6 months to learn half a dozen adjectives and one verb. The whole point is don't give up. Don't give up. Let's keep going. And guess what? Now we are on verb number 2. Verb number 2 is aller. Dun, dun, dun. Aller, aller, aller. I don't know. Is it the same? I guess that's Spanish. I don't know. We're on French right now. And the verb aller, it means to go. Comment vas-tu ce matin? Comment vas-tu ce matin? So how are we going to learn the verb aller? If we look back at the verb être, the thing that we did was basically, I think we divided it into 3 parts. The first thing that we did was we learned how to conjugate. And then we learned how to add adjectives. We also learned that there's basically 5 different ways you can use the verb aller. If you are an A1 learner, obviously you're going to learn how to conjugate verbs right away. Then also adjectives, they're pretty much basic. And I think we should also learn some nouns eventually. But because this book is basically just helping you to learn greetings in French, let's stick with just the basics. So now we're on to aller. And okay, so I think that we should have basically the same kind of structure in order to learn this verb. We're going to learn comment vas-tu ce matin. So what's that? Comment, how, comment vas-tu? How are you? Also, we need to conjugate it in all the different ways. So we have, he and she is il and elle. Comment va-t-il? For he and she, we have to add a T. Comment va-t-il? Comment va-t-elle? In order for you to practice that, I created a worksheet. If you click the Linktree link above, then you're going to have access to my blog. The link, actually, it has a picture of Joey. It says, how you doing? And click that blog link, and then you're going to find a Google link where you have an exercise sheet. Just like we learned with être, in addition to conjugating the verb, so like how does aller look when you add it to I and he and she and you and we and they, I've also added something else. Just like in être, we added adjectives. I've added different parts of the day. Basically, you're going to practice how are you doing today? How are you doing this evening? How are you doing tonight? How are you doing this morning? Like all the different times of the day where you might be asking, how are you doing? I think the only other thing that you really need to know is that like verbs in French, sometimes they follow a pattern when you learn them and sometimes they don't. Okay, so it's like, remember être? We say like for they, like if you have a group of girls, you say elle, but there's an S. And if you say they as a group of guys, then it's ils with an S. And for the verb être, we say ils sont and elles sont. And suddenly now with the verb aller, we're going to be saying ils vont and elles vont. And you might start to think, oh, okay, so there's kind of like a little bit of a pattern. But I don't know, it doesn't really seem that that's the case, because if we look at like je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes. So if we look at nous sommes and vous êtes, all right, now look at the verb aller. We have allons-nous and allez-vous. Allons-nous, allez-vous. Nous sommes, vous êtes. I mean, it's kind of crazy because it doesn't seem like it follows any kind of pattern. It's okay, as we're just starting out in French. We're going slow. We're learning verbs one by one. We're getting used to the way that we conjugate these verbs, and we have these wonderful worksheets to help us. So what you do in order to learn this content is you just go to the blog, you download the Google Drive doc, and then during the day, maybe pull out your day planner and just write down when you plan on learning French. Or if you suddenly have a desire to learn French. And the way that those two documents, both for être and for aller, the way that they're designed is that you can jump into the document. There are basically between 8 and 12 tables. And you might be thinking, wow, 8 to 12 tables seems like an awful lot of tables. But it doesn't have to be. Get a piece of paper, get a pencil, and just fill in the table. Draw the table on a piece of paper, write down the way that you conjugate the verb, and then add that little ending. Either you're doing the verb exercise aller, then you're going to be adding ce matin, or aujourd'hui, or cette nuit. And if you're doing the verb être, then you're going to be adding adjectives like belle, intelligente, and gentille. And of course, if you notice, all of these will help you in your process of dating in French. Maybe I need to create another book called Dating in French. Anyways, good luck. Let's take this one day at a time. And pretty soon we're going to have a whole bunch of words in our French arsenal, and we're going to be on our way to becoming fluent.